It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon to speak with you. I don't always know exactly where my audience, sometimes what you know and don't know, obviously, for many people about dementia. So I am going to spend a little time going over exactly what that is, and then hopefully I'll get into some other tips on how we communicate with residents with dementia, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you as well. I have been at Marjorie Lee for, this March, it'll be 26 years. I did not intend to be there that long when I went for my job, but I actually graduated from UC, College of Nursing, right out of high school into college, and I got my BSN there. And I went into med-surg at Jewish Hospital when it was down in Clifton, and I tell you, I learned real quick how to be a nurse there, because you did or you didn't. So very helpful experience, but I also knew that after a while, when I was lining up 20 piggybacks to hang at 2 o'clock and at 6 o'clock in the morning, because I worked night shift, I just kind of thought, this isn't what I wanted to do when I got into nursing. So it led me to search for another avenue, which was I needed more of a relationship. I would be off for 2 days, I'd come back, all my patients had either gone home or changed or moved to another unit. So I thought, I'm really looking for a relationship here I need to see what I'm doing. So that's when I had this pull towards long-term care. My grandmother lived to be 101. My dad lived to be 95, and I was fortunate enough to have him live at Marjorie Lee the last 7 years of his life, so that was a blessing. But, it worked for me. You get a relationship with these residents, and I just could never leave. And the organization was great because as a director of nursing, you need resources in order to do your job and do it well. And they were always very good about giving us resources. So that's just a little background on me and what my experience is. We do have 200 residents that live at Marjorie Lee, around 200, independent living, assisted living, and the nursing care. And one of those units in nursing care is primarily long-term, which is dementia. A lot of them have dementia symptoms. And the other is an assisted living 9-apartment unit for early stages of memory loss. So that's kind of...
What's your name again?
I know. That can happen. So. So anyway, well, hopefully we can go ahead and get started then. Again, what I plan to cover today is what is dementia, common signs and symptoms, the strategies for caring for someone with dementia, specifically behavior management. I want to talk a little bit about validation therapy, communication techniques, distraction and redirection, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some questions and answers. So what is dementia? Dementia is a term that's used to describe actually a group of symptoms that relate to intellectual cognitive abilities. And what we mean by that is the ability to think, to problem solve, remember, it's our memory, to reason, having good judgment. That's when our safety decisions come into play. We kind of lose some of that. And then communication. So dementia itself is not a disease. It is a term, and it describes these signs and symptoms. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that a little bit. The nerve cells in the brain are damaged or deteriorated, and that's why we begin having these problems with these cognitive skills. So.
Do they always either deteriorate, the brain cells,
Yes, eventually. What happens is, and when I talk about vascular dementia, what's happened is there's been a loss of blood and nutrients to the brain cells, and without that, then the cells die. So, yeah. And there are over 50 types of dementia. Each is caused by a different underlying disease process. So it really depends on what disease is causing the symptoms of the dementia. Each has a different characteristic in terms of the onset of the disease, the rate of the progression, and then the problems that it brings with it. Dementia is progressive, which means the symptoms will gradually get worse. Opposite of that is what we call delirium. Delirium presents like dementia, but it's sudden in its onset, and it also, if you fix the problem that causes the delirium, those symptoms go away. So delirium is an acute issue that is something is causing it, and it can be reversed. But now dementia, whatever that is causing the dementia, is progressive and it's long-term. So each person is unique, as I said, and they will experience dementia in their own way. Some may progress faster than others, and symptoms may also appear different in every person. And again, it all depends on what part of the brain is affected with the dementia. Your frontal lobe is where a lot of residents or folks who have dementia caused from alcoholism, let's say, tends to affect our frontal lobe, and that's where a lot of our filters are. So that's why socially we see some inappropriate behavior from those folks.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
You talk about it as a disease. To me, it should be probably more of a condition than a disease, because disease says you're going to try, it's got some cause that you can then try to cure. And I'm kind of confused that I didn't think that it's been diagnosed as, quote, or how you would diagnose it as a disease.
You're right. It's not a disease. It is a disorder that carries with it some symptoms, signs and symptoms, that affect your ability to think, reason, use logic. So it's not a disease. There is an underlying disease that is causing those symptoms or caused the deterioration or the death of the brain cells.
Okay.
That didn't help?
Maybe.
Huh?
You say that it causes brain cells to die.
Right.
I've heard of it talked about as some kind of white substance, not like that is found on the brain. Is that correct? Some sort of like milky.
Yes, there are, you have certain, like, you have white matter, you have gray matter that all makes up your brain. We also have part of the nervous system as our myelin sheaths, and so there are various conditions and diseases that can affect, the white matter, the gray matter, but it all ultimately results in the death of the cells in the brain. So they're not all, the same. There's something that's causing something to go awry with either the chemistry or the blood flow to the brain. And then that's what causes the cells to deteriorate or die. So primary dementias really, and that's where you have your Alzheimer's disease, where you end up with gray matter and white matter that's affected with your Alzheimer's. That's something that we're still trying to find, we're studying a lot of research and hopefully a cure, but that in itself is a disease. But due to that disease, it causes the symptoms of dementia. And then the frontal lobe deterioration is what I talked about with some nutritional and alcoholic kind of dementias. Secondary dementias include your vascular disease, That's where either due to a clot, a stroke, or a hemorrhage, somehow that blood flow has been diminished to the brain and those cells were not able to survive. Also, even, years of bad cholesterol, when you get the buildup in your arteries, that carotid, if it's blocked, it's not perfusing the brain with the blood flow that it needs. So then it tends to affect your brain cells. Infection, and again, this isn't really just with older residents, but because most infections, if you can cure them or take care of them, treat them, then usually those symptoms go away. But in younger folks, particularly babies, that's where a lot of the developmental disorders come from. When there's like cytomegalovirus, there's different infections in utero that affect the growth and the health of the brain. So therefore, those children tend to grow up also with symptoms of dementia. So, and then other neurological diseases, your ALS, your Parkinson's, those kind of diseases that attack the neurological system. And of course, your brain is the center of that, so the controller. So obviously, you're going to then see, again, the signs and symptoms of dementia. And then there's trauma, the head injuries, where sometimes you get permanent damage from that. So dementia, know just what's normal and what's not. It may look normal on the outside, but then after you talk to someone for a while, then you begin to see that they have trouble with the word finding, or they repeat their story. So it doesn't look any different a lot of times until it gets into the later stages, the advanced stages. And then that's when you begin to sometimes see the deterioration in the physical appearance. You will start to notice patterns of neglect where they don't bathe because we forget to bathe. Losing weight because we forget to eat. And then dementia, just to note, is not a normal part of aging. I think some people feel that it is a normal part of aging, but it's really not. Yes, we have forgetfulness, and we do get confused, but dementia as a whole, where there's a disease again that's causing it that's going to progress, that's different, and it's not always a normal part of aging. There's the story I like to tell folks is there's a difference between remembering that where you park your car and when you go to the mall, and how did I get here? Did I drive at all? So that's kind of the difference between the two. Basic tasks such as you will see increased difficulty even with chewing and swallowing food, again, because that part of the brain may be affected that tells us, how to chew and how to swallow. And the danger there, of course, is that if we don't chew our food and swallow it correctly, we're going to end up, instead of going down the esophagus, it goes down the trachea into our lungs, and what we call an aspiration, where the food gets down in there and it kind of develops a good medium or a culture for pneumonia. So making fewer trips to the grocery store because, again, they forget that they need to get food or that they haven't been. Cooking less and less because the appetite begins to be affected. And then failing to follow instructions for taking medications is a big one that we see as well. Hygiene, you get to see, you begin to see that infrequent bathing, unusually sloppy appearance, body or mouth odor, and it's just, again, because you forget the task. You forget that's what you need to do today, and you can't remember when you did or didn't do it. Responsibilities that you may see begin to fail, mail being unopened, bills unpaid, mountains and mountains of paper that are piling up, bank account overdraft notices, not able to do that calculation anymore, prescriptions unfilled, and laundry piling up. Yes?
Have you had some of your patients or clients, whoever, do the opposite, where they become a sucker for anyone who calls them any charity?
Oh,
I know-
absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I think my family has.
And especially with the internet
Yeah.
and those scams that, if you call or send this money here, then you're going to win, or you've been awarded some kind of inheritance overseas from, we've had quite a few people. We've done a lot of education with our residents on that. And we try to help them with that too when we're aware of it. Other things that we see are burned pots and pans. I know that happens a lot in our independent living when we're seeing folks begin to decline and have a move usually to another level of care. They have kitchens in independent, and what happens is they set the smoke alarms off, and we go over. They left the pot of prunes on the oven and had the stove and forgot, or the toast. So that's usually our clue that we need to start paying attention. So.
Security people just knew it was Mrs. Overman's toaster.
Foul odor in the refrigerator because they forget to throw food out. That should be thrown out. Again, food supply is low. The home interior begins to be in a disarray, especially if someone has been very meticulous in the past. Exterior home maintenance is ignored, and then automobile exterior is scratched and dented. That's a big one. We have residents that we have a garage underneath our building, and we noticed the cars because some of the staff parked in the garage too. And every time we have seen some pretty large scratches and dents. And so at that, we recently just had a resident who the family did take her car. And it was quite devastating. It was devastating to her because she still wants to be able to go out into the community. But she didn't see it. She didn't see it. So that's hard because it's those losses that are difficult as we get into that age. So health, again, the weight gain or weight loss just from not eating appropriately. You can see dizziness. You can see, that could be from dehydration, from not drinking or remembering to drink. Loss or increased appetite, excessive daytime sleepiness and napping. You get more tired. Your endurance is not there. Bruising from running into things, or falls. Speaking loudly, being withdrawn, and that of course is because they know that they're confused and socially or forgetful, and the dementia is, socially it's not acceptable to them, so they tend not to go to things as much as they used to. Of course, there's the incontinence, the bedwetting, spilling and dropping things, again, bumping into things, and then insomnia. Sleep becomes very disrupted. They tend to not sleep at night, through a full cycle. And it usually affects the rapid eye movement sleep, which, they really need to be, in order for their brains to be restored. But that's affected, which compounds the problem. Yeah?
Why would that be?
Why would that be? The brain, the chemistry in the brain and the cells, it's just not it doesn't communicate with itself enough, and it just does not get into that deep sleep, the rapid eye movement. Isolation, again, is lack of interest in friendships and staying active. Keeps curtains rather drawn day and night. So again, that's that withdrawal, the depression, because somewhere they know that there's a change. Has little access to transportation and states often just not getting out like I used to. The attitude is usually sadness, verbal and or physical abuse to others, and that's typically out of frustration. Speaks of being depressed or feelings of despair. May begin abusing alcohol or medications. Paranoia, I'll talk more about that probably later on. Refusal to communicate, just because it's so hard to do. They kind of forget how to do it. Unusually argumentative. Again, that doesn't happen with everyone. None of these things happen with everyone. It presents differently, again, depending on where that dementia is taking place and how they respond to it. And then any recent emotional or medical crisis, they usually have sometimes outbursts with no explanation. So there's 10 warning signs that we often look for when someone's beginning the stages of dementia. Memory loss, difficulty performing familiar tasks, as we talked about, problems with language, disorientation to time and place, poor or decreased judgment, problems with abstract thinking, not able to figure things out, misplacing things, change in mood or behavior, changes in personality, and loss of initiative. Usually one or more, and they appear at different times, but eventually, usually you see difficulties as the dementia progresses with each of them. So. Strange or disruptive behaviors. We often see a lot of wandering and doing certain things repeatedly, and then insist on unusual routines or activities. Understanding some of the underlying influences of the behavior really help us to deal better with behavior problems. Try to figure out the reason behind the behavior. And this is what I tell everyone, is that every behavior has a meaning. When you lose the ability, like they do with language and to communicate, that's their way of communicating, is their behaviors. So we have to really try to figure out what that behavior means. We have to think about the person's background, their previous experiences and preferences, and this is where we really, really need to get to know our residents. The behavior may be motivated by an urge to continue even past activities or habits. I have a few examples of that. We had a resident in our skilled nursing center. Every morning she would, take her toast and she would tear it up and throw it on the ground. And the staff were just getting really frustrated with that because, she didn't eat her toast and then she made a mess. So, finally, her daughter, who lived out of town, came in town and she said, she grew up on a farm and she used to feed the chickens every morning at that time. So that's what she was doing. She was, tearing up the bread and feeding it to the chickens. So, the perspective then is, that's not so unusual, right? So you really, really do. We need to get to know what they did and for a living and how they grew up. And so it's very helpful. We had one resident who got up and she kept telling her daughter that she was talking to this person that was in her room. She had my same clothes on, and I don't understand why, and it really bugged her and frustrated her. And the daughter was like, "Mom, nobody's in here. Nobody has your clothes on." Not that that's an effective way to deal with it, but she was trying. And if not a week or two later, the daughter was in the room and opened the closet door, and there's a full-length mirror right there. So she was looking at herself, the same person wearing the same outfit. So, you can't go too far as to think that they don't know what they're doing or what they're saying. There may be some truth to it. So you always have to kind of explore that. So they do things they didn't do before, or they do things in an exaggerated way, such as repeating words or questions. They may even shout, become aggressive and combative, hit and pinch. And that, of course, is disturbing because, mom or dad were never like that. They would be so upset with themselves. But again, they're not themselves. That's not the same healthy brain that they had before. So we try to reassure families that you have to understand that. Restless, wander, resist care. They get frightened. They don't know why someone's doing something, to them. So again, behavior is an attempt to communicate, and it really is up to us to figure out what it is. It all has meaning. Like, when somebody, I had this question twice last week from someone. The resident kept getting up, and we were talking about restraints and how, restraints are against the law. I mean, we used them back then because we thought that we were doing the best that we could, but now that we know better, we do better. But not that we were trying to hurt anyone, but tying people up just caused more problems. If somebody wants to get up, if you tie them down, I think you're going to find they're going to make them mad and they're going to still try to get up. So we had just shared that, well, then what do you do if you can't? It was one of my nurse aid students, so what do you do if they keep trying to get up and you don't want them to get hurt? Well, what are they trying to tell you? They want to get up. So if it's 3 a.m. and they're in bed and they're keep trying to get up, let them get up. Put them in a different chair. Bring them out to the lounge. We're here 24/7. So, you're up working, they can be up. So it's really trying to figure out what things mean. Do they want something to eat? Are they looking for the bathroom? Why are they wandering? So anyway, some of the things we try to problem solve. So what we want to do is we always want to use a positive approach when we're working with residents or folks with dementia. For many caregiving tasks, usually the following approach will help residents better understand what's going on and reduce their anxiety, especially in the middle, to late stages of dementia. Always approach from the front. This will help the person with dementia be aware that you're coming. Never approach them from behind. You can imagine how frightening that is when they're not so sure of their surroundings, and if you walk up behind someone, they can't see you. It can set the whole tone for the interaction to go bad. Walk slowly. Allow time for the person with dementia to understand that you're approaching. Again, we can't be hurried because they don't, what happens with dementia is the thought processes are very, very slowed and also disconnected. So it takes them a while to interpret that information. The brain can't interpret it as quickly. So you have to be slow. You always want to stand to the person's side. That's a supportive stance, whereas standing right in front may make the person feel confrontational or trapped. You call the person by name, and you want to use the name just to get the person's attention. As dementia progresses, people may respond, usually they do respond to their first name more so than their last name, because that's what they've been referred to all their life mostly, and they respond better to their first name. You always want to crouch low. We do a lot of that, crouching down if the person's seated or lying down, and that's less threatening. You don't want to ever stand over someone in a wheelchair and talk to them because that's intimidating. Offer your hand. The response to this gesture will give you an idea as to whether or not they're going to welcome further touch. Some residents respond very well to that and some do not. So you can offer your hand, and if they take it or seem to respond well to it, then you know that you can probably go ahead. But it's very important to get at their level, to make eye contact and go very slow. Validation therapy. This is a technique that's based on the idea that feelings and memories of disoriented elders should be listened to carefully while showing respect for what the resident is saying. Validating another person's emotions and feeling, it's a willingness to go where the resident is in time. This is different than reality orientation. I think years ago when we were using restraints, we used to also use reality orientation, like remind the person what day it was, what time it was, what year it was. Well, again, now that we know better, they've lost the ability to remember, to use logic, and they're back in a different time. So reality orientation doesn't always work. Validation therapy, on the other hand, really communicates to them that you understand how they're feeling. So when the resident is walking around looking for their sister or their mother, who's coming to have lunch with them, well, we know that they're not coming to have lunch with them. Their mother's not. So you kind of get with the individual and you talk. What they want is they want to talk about their mother. They're missing their mother. They are remembering, going out to lunch with their mom or having meals with mom. So it's very effective to then distract and redirect and talk about, because that's really what she wants. She needs to talk about her mom. So a lot of times, instead of saying, well, no, this is 2015, your mom died, 50 years ago or whatever, just talk about mom. And then usually they, it happens a lot. They just, forget they were looking for mom, but that emotional need has been filled. Again, their opinions are acknowledged, respected, and heard, regardless of whether or not, we agree with what's being communicated. I always had to work with my staff a bit on this because they felt that they were being deceptive or, lying to the residents, and it's not. It's not. They don't know. What they want to know is that you understand where they are. So we get creative and we make up stories that aren't always truthful, but it calms them down. That's what relaxes them. That's what gives them a sense of security. Because they're not going to understand. They don't have the ability to understand what time it is.
What's the female to male ratio of your dementia patients generally?
I don't know the exact ratio, but certainly much more female than male. Mm-hmm.
So and then you have more nurses, female than male?
Nurses?
Yes.
At given times, yes. Yeah, we do. But we do have a male nurse that's really, really good at this. Is able to interact very well with our dementia residents. So it's all about the skill. Thoughts and opinions are treated, again, with genuine respect and as an expression of feelings rather than dismissed. So if someone is crying over, if they think that they buried their spouse, today, and they're crying and distraught over that, we treat them just like it happened. We grieve with them. We let them go through that process again because they need to get that out. So that's typically how we handle things like that. But they just want, you can't dismiss how they're feeling, whether you agree with it or whether we know it's right or wrong. Somehow you've got to handle those feelings just as if they were actual and true. So, first of all, what you want to do when this is what we teach our staff, is you lower your stress level with deep breathing before you enter into the discussion, because it can be very difficult. You don't always know where it's going either. So, we have them relax and then use a low tone voice because we want them to feel that it's nurturing. You know, we want them to feel that we care about them and it's a nurturing environment. We want to maintain close eye contact to reduce anxiety. Mirror the actions and the emotions of the residents just so you can build a rapport. You know, if they're crying, then, you know, you may need to cry with them. If they're laughing, you laugh with them, even if you think what they're laughing about isn't funny. They need to know that you're understanding and you're with them. That's how we build the rapport. You allow them to express, you know, both good and bad memories, you know, whether it's, you know, a wedding that they're celebrating at that time, or whether, again, like I said, it's, you know, a funeral of their spouse or one of their children. Encourage discussion with frequent questions. Use your own words to validate what they say. Touch them periodically if you know that they are okay with that. Like I said, offering the hand always kind of helps. Just, again, to show your support. People get that communication, you know, that you care in various ways, not just through words, but by watching your behavior, and also they mimic the behavior of the person that's working with them. So that's why we always want our folks to be calm, because if we approach them hurriedly and if we're anxious ourselves, they're going to mimic that anxiety. So play their favorite music in the background. Again, that's a source of distraction and redirection. So how caregivers, again, communicate is key. It affects their ability to say what they want and to understand what someone tells them. So again, if we approach them too hurriedly, or if we speak in, you know, long sentences and not clearly, it's not going to be effective, and then that's what we're going to get in return, and we need to get as much from the resident in return. So we always have to approach them calmly and clearly, so to get as much information from them as we can. So there are 10 communication commandments that we've come up with. Never argue, instead you agree. Again, you're going to argue, you're not going to get anywhere because they don't have that ability to reason. So you're kind of arguing with the wall, so to speak. Never reason. Instead, we always want to divert, because again, they don't have that ability. So let's divert their attention. You know, can we get them in another activity? Can we get them somewhere, you know, where change the environment? If that environment is too overstimulating, we need to get them in a calmer environment. Never shame, instead distract. If they're doing something that's not appropriate, you try to distract them and get them to a different, you know, location, or to stop what they're doing. But you have to be creative, and that's why knowing our residents really, really helps, because we know what they like and what's going to work for a resident, because it's different for each of them sometimes. Never lecture. Instead, we just want to reassure. Never say remember. Instead, you reminisce. You can't say remember because, again, they don't have the ability to do that, and that just reminds them that they can't. That's going to frustrate them. Reminiscing is great because it's also a technique we use for distraction and diversion. Take them in the room, and usually there's pictures. They all bring in pictures of their family, or in a lot of old pictures. So that helps to just say, Mary, tell me about, you know, who is this? Was that you? And they'll start talking about, you know, when they got married and all that. So, and it just helps. It gets them to a time that's pleasant, and it helps them forget what's causing them their anxiety. Never say, I told you. Instead, you say, repeat. Can you tell me again what you heard or what you said? or what I said. Never say you can't. Instead, you say do what you can. You know, they may be going about getting dressed the way that they want to, and it may not be the order in which you think it needs to be or should be done. But you go ahead and you say, you can't do that. Well, yeah, no, they can do, and then you try to fix afterwards. So, but it's important that they're able to continue to do what they can do. That's all, it just gives them control, keeps their independence, which is so important to them, and builds their self-esteem. So, never command, of course, or demand. Instead, you have to ask, or you have to model. You know, you may need to show them what goes on first, or show them how to pick up the toothbrush. So, never condescend, of course. You want to instead encourage and praise. Yeah, if you're condescending, then you're not working in the right profession. Never force. Instead, you want to reinforce. So you just keep reminding, because it may take, and you may have to try a different way, you know. And then distraction and redirection. Examples, I've kind of talked about this throughout, but those really are very, validation therapy and then distraction and redirection are very effective for those times when residents are completely distraught. You know, they're very anxious or stressed in the environment that they're in, or the circumstance may be causing them problems. So getting them to a different place in the building, or getting them out for a drive, or having them a pet visit. All of those things can just, you know, they'll put their attention to that, and they do forget about what was causing the anxiety and the worry. So we use that quite a bit.
Do you use pet therapy much?
Yes, we do. We use pet therapy. We do art therapy, music therapy. You know, music is really one of the things that is a strength that stays with us throughout our life. We have what we call community circles on our dementia floor, and in that household, it's all the residents get in a circle every day, and there's a facilitator, and the facilitator will pose a question about weather, maybe about sports, something. And we always start that circle with a song. And for the resident that never speaks, she'll start singing, "My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean," or "Take Me Out to the Ballpark." It's amazing. But what that does is it gets them engaged. It totally can get them engaged into what we're talking about and what we're going to be doing. But they respond so very well to music. So, again, this is helpful when someone becomes agitated, demanding, or uncooperative. We change the environment. Focus on familiar objects or activities that are not threatening, like looking at pictures in a book or magazine, discussing a meal or an activity of interest. When our residents move in, we always spend time with the family and with the resident, and we get a whole history. What did they like? What was their favorite thing to do? So we keep that handy for the staff, so they have it to refer to in times like this, because it's so important. That's it.